Hi, welcome to part two in our exploration of Islamic art. In our last segment, we discussed medieval Islamic art, more precisely Western medieval Islamic art, particularly in Europe and Spain. Um, just a reminder that Islamic art is a modern concept created by art historians in the 19th century to categorize and study the material first produced under the Islamic people that emerged from Arabia in the 7th century. Um, the Islamic Empire did expand into various regions. Today, Islamic art describes all of the arts that were produced in the lands where Islam was the dominant religion or the religion of those who ruled. Unlike the terms Christian, Jewish, and Buddhist art, which refer only to religious art of these faiths, Islamic art is not used merely to describe religious art or architecture, but applies to all art forms produced in the Islamic West. And that's really important to remember because in our video that we were looking at, Islamic art, I think it was Mirror of an Invisible World, they talked about, this distinction between sacred and secular art, and there's this misconception that there aren't figures or representations of animals or humans in Islamic art, and that's not true. In secular art, there is. It's mostly sacred spaces like mosques, where the decoration or decorative program is focused on writing and calligraphy. Um, so we're going to move into Islamic art in West and Central Asia. This is an image of the Kaaba. Um, and this is a site that many Muslims will go to prayer and go complete a pilgrimage to. A pilgrimage to a holy site is a core principle of almost all faiths, including Christianity. The Kaaba, meaning cube in Arabic, is a square building elegantly draped in silk and cotton veil. It's located in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, and it is the holiest shrine of Islam. In Islam, Muslims pray 5 times a day, and after 624 CE, these prayers were directed towards Mecca and the Kaaba rather than Jerusalem. This direction, or Qibla in Arabic, is marked in all mosques and enables the faithful to know in which direction they should pray. You should have learned that in your last segment. The Quran established the direction of prayer. All Muslims aspire to undertake the Hajj, or the annual pilgrimage to the Kaaba, once in their lives if they are able. Prayer 5 times a day and the Hajj are two of the 5 pillars of Islam that we talked about in our last segment, the most fundamental principles of the faith. Upon arriving in Mecca, pilgrims gather in the courtyard of the Majah al-Haram around the Kaaba. Then they circumambulate. And circumambulation is they kind of move around the structure. We'll see that term, and that is a term that I want you to know. It should be one of your vocabulary terms. We'll see that when we look at some Buddhist art as well. But they circumambulate, and it's called tawaf in Arabic, Tawaf, or walk around the Kaaba, during which they hope to kiss and touch the black stone, al-Hajar al-Aswad, embedded in the eastern corner of the Kaaba. So the Kaaba was a sanctuary in pre-Islamic times. Muslims believe that Abraham, known as Ibrahim in Islamic tradition, and his son Ishmael constructed the Kaaba. Tradition holds that it was originally a simple, unroofed, rectangular structure. The Qasha tribe, who ruled Mecca, rebuilt the pre-Islamic Kaaba in 608 CE with alternating courses of masonry, wood. A door was raised above ground level to protect the shrine from intruders and floodwaters. Muhammad was driven out of Mecca in 620 CE to Yathrib, which is now known as Medina. Upon his return to Mecca in 629 or 630 CE, the shrine became the focal point for Muslim worship and pilgrimage. The pre-Islamic Kaaba housed the black stone and statues of pagan gods. Muhammad reportedly cleansed the Kaaba of idols upon his victorious return to Mecca, returning the shrine to the monotheism of Ibrahim or Abraham. The black stone is believed to have been given to Ibrahim by the angel Gabriel, and it is revered by Muslims. Muhammad made a final pilgrimage in 632 CE, the year of his death, and thereby established the rites of a pilgrimage. So some modifications that have been made. The Kaaba has been modified extensively throughout its history. The area around the Kaaba was expanded in order to accommodate the growing number of pilgrims by the second caliph, Umar, who ruled from 634 to 44 CE. The caliph Uthman, who ruled 644 to 56 CE, built the colonnades around the plaza where the Kaaba stands and incorporated other important monuments into the sanctuary. During the civil war between the Caliph Abd al-Malik and Ibn Zubayr, and I know I'm mispronouncing these names, who controlled Mecca, the Kaaba was set on fire in 683 CE. Reportedly, the black stone broke into 3 pieces, and Ibn Zubayr reassembled it with silver. He rebuilt the Kaaba in wood and stone, following Ibrahim's original dimensions, and also paved the space around the Kaaba. After regaining control of Mecca, Abd al-Malik restored the part of the building that Muhammad is thought to have designed. None of these renovations can be confirmed through study of the building or archaeological evidence. These changes are only outlined in later literary sources. Reportedly, under the Umayyad Caliph al-Walid, who ruled from 705 to 15 CE, the mosque that enclosed the Kaaba was decorated with mosaics like that of the Dome of the Rock and the Great Mosque of Damascus. By the 7th century, the Kaaba was covered with kiswa, a black cloth that is replaced annually during the Hajj. Under the early Abbasid caliphs, who ruled from 50 to 1250 CE, the mosque around the Kaaba was expanded and modified several times. According to travel writers, such as Ibn Jabbar, who saw the Kaaba in 1183 CE, it retained the 8th century Abbasid form for several centuries, from 1269 to 1517 CE. The Maluks of Egypt controlled Hajj, the highlands in western Arabia, where Mecca is located. Sultan Qaitbay, who ruled 1468 to 96 CE, built a madrasa, a religious school, against one side of the mosque. Under the Ottoman sultans Suleiman I, who ruled 1520 to 1566 CE, the Selim and Selim II, whose mosque that we saw in our last segment, who ruled from 1566 to 74 CE, the complex was heavily renovated. In 1631 CE, the Kaaba and the surrounding mosque was entirely rebuilt after the floods had demolished them in the previous years. This mosque, which is what exists today, is composed of a large open space with colonnades on 4 sides and with 7 minarets, the largest number of any mosque in the world. At the center of this large plaza sits the Kaaba, as well as many other holy buildings and monuments. The last major modification was carried out in the 1950s by the government of Saudi Arabia to accommodate the increasingly large number of pilgrims who came on the Hajj. Today, the mosque covers almost 40 acres. So that was quite an extensive history. The Kaaba today is a cubical structure, unlike any other religious structure. It is 15 meters tall and 10.5 meters on each side. Its corners roughly align with the cardinal directions. The door of the Kaaba is now made of solid gold. It was added in 1982. The kiswa, the large cloth that covers the Kaaba, used to be sent from Egypt with a Hajj caravan, but today is made in Saudi Arabia. Until the advent of modern transportation, all pilgrims undertook the often dangerous Hajj or pilgrimage to Mecca in a large caravan across the desert, leaving from Damascus, Cairo, and other major cities in Arabia, Yemen, and Iraq. The numerous changes to the Kaaba and its associated mosques serve as a reminder of how often buildings, even sacred ones, are renovated and remodeled either due to damage or to the changing needs of the community. Only Muslims may visit the holy cities of Mecca and Medina today. All right. Move on to another structure, the Dome of the Rock. You probably are familiar with this one. The Dome of the Rock is a building of extraordinary beauties, solidity, and elegance, um, and this idea of a singularity of shape, both outside and inside the direction, is so magnificent, and the workmanship so surpassing as to defy description. The greater part is covered with gold, so that the eyes of one who gazes on its beauties are dazzled by its brilliance, now glowing like a mass of light, now flashing like lightning. And this was written by Ibn Battuta, and he was a 14th century travel writer. So one of the most iconic images of the Middle East is undoubtedly the Dome of the Rock, shimmering in the setting sun of Jerusalem, sitting atop the Haram al-Ashaf, the highest point in Old Jerusalem. The Dome of the Rock's golden colored dome and Turkish faience tiles dominate the cityscape of Old Jerusalem. So faience is F-A-I-E-N-C-E, and this is a technique. They talked about this in the video that we watched related to Islamic art, and so it's sort of a ceramic technique. The Dome of the Rock is one of the earliest surviving buildings from the Islamic world. This remarkable building is not a mosque, as it commonly is assumed, and scholars still debate its original function and meaning. Here's a really beautiful picture of it, and here is this like tile work, this beautiful faience, or viance, I think that's how you might pronounce it. Between the death of the Prophet Muhammad in 632 and 692, when the Dome of the Rock was completed, there were intermittent warfare in Arabia and the Holy Land around Jerusalem. The first Arab armies who emerged from the Arabian Peninsula were focused on conquering and establishing an empire, not a building. Thus, the Dome of the Rock was one of the few Islamic buildings ever constructed. It was built between 685 and 691-92 by Abd al-Malik, probably the most important Umayyad caliph, as a religious focal point for his supporters while he was fighting a civil war against Ibn Zabiyar. And we talked about these two in our last image when we were looking at the Kaaba. When Abd al-Malik began construction of the Dome of the Rock, he did not have control of the Kaaba, the holiest shrine of Islam, which is located in Mecca. The dome is located on the Haram al-Sharif, an enormous open-air platform that now houses Al-Aqsa Mosque, madrasas, and several other religious buildings. Few places are as holy for Christians, Jews, and Muslims as the Haram al-Sharif. It is the Temple Mount, the site of the Jewish Second Temple, which the Roman Emperor Titus destroyed in 70 CE while subduing the Jewish revolt. A Roman temple was later built on the site. The Temple Mount was abandoned in late antiquity. Here's an interior view, and actually this is the Dome of the Rock. There actually is a huge rock at the center of the structure, which is believed to be the location. This rock is believed to be the location where Abraham was prepared to sacrifice his son Ishmael or Isaac in Judeo-Christian tradition. Today, Muslims believe that the rock commemorates the night journey of Muhammad. One night, the angel Gabriel came to Muhammad while he slept near the Kaaba in Mecca and took him to Al-Majah al-Asaka. And again, don't worry about these spellings. They're not, I mean, they're important, but they're in your lecture notes. And this translates as the farthest mosque in Jerusalem. From the rock, Muhammad journeyed to heaven, where he met other prophets such as Moses and Christ, witnessed paradise and hell, and finally saw God enthroned and circumambulated by angels. Remember what that term means? Circumambulate. So these angels were sort of walking or, marching around God. And I think it's really interesting. We sometimes forget, when we're thinking about these different religions, Judaism and Islam, that they are similar. I mean, they have the same prophets, they have the same, a lot of the same concepts. It's just, they believe in different things. But they all come from a similar source. And so I think it is important to remember that. Here's another interior view and a diagram. The rock is enclosed by two ambulatories. You can kind of see this here. Remember, an ambulatory allows you to sort of walk around, either a relic or in this case the rock. In this case, the aisles that circle the rock, and that's what this is, an ambulatory. And an octagonal exterior wall. The central colonnade, and again, a colonnade is a row of columns, was composed of 4 piers and 12 columns supporting a rounded drum that transitions into the 2-layered dome that's more than 20 meters in diameter. So you can kind of see this elevation here. The colonnades are clad in marble on the lower registers, and their upper registers are adorned with exceptional mosaics. Now, we've seen this before. This is very similar to Byzantine interior church decorations as well. This idea of the earthly, being below, and then, more of the heavenly and sacred and divine as we move up towards the top of the structure. The ethereal interior atmosphere is a result of light that pours in from grilled windows located in the drum and exterior walls, which you see here. Golden mosaics depicting jewels shimmer in the glittering light. Byzantine and Sasanian crowns in the midst of vegetal motifs are also visible. So there is some of the iconography from the Byzantine culture as well. The Byzantine Empire stood to the north and to the west of the new Islamic Empire until 1453, when its capital, Constantinople, fell to the Ottoman Turks. To the east, the old Sasanian Empire of Persia imploded under pressure from the Arabs, but nevertheless provided winged crown motifs that can be found in the Dome of the Rock. Mosaics. So we're going to focus on that a little bit more. Wall and ceiling mosaics became very popular in late antiquity and adorned many Byzantine churches, including San Vitale and Ravenna, which we looked at earlier, and Hagia Sophia in Constantinople. Thus, the use of mosaics reflects an artistic tie to the world of late antiquity. Late antiquity is a period from about 300 to 800, when the classical world dissolves and the medieval period emerges. It is often referred to as the medieval period. Here's a detail of one of the mosaics from the Dome of the Rock. The mosaics in the Dome of the Rock contain no human figures or animals. While Islam does not prohibit the use of figurative art per se, it seems that in religious buildings, this prescription was upheld. Instead, we see vegetative scrolls and motifs, as well as vessels and winged crowns, which were worn by Sasanian kings. Thus, the iconography of the Dome of the Rock also includes the other major pre-Islamic civilizations of the region, the Sasanian Empire, which the Arab armies had defeated. And so in that video, they do talk about how adaptable Islamic culture was, that it kind of took the best of certain aspects of maybe the local territories that it conquered and sort of infused them with their own beliefs and traditions. The building enclosing the rock also seems to take its form from the imperial mausoleum. You can think of that as mausoleum, the burial place, places of Roman emperors, such as Augustus of Hadrian. And so this is a circular floor plan. Its circular form and dome also reference the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. The circular Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem was built to enclose the tomb of Christ. So these mausoleums were often built on the site of martyrs, um, and um, and have this sort of circular design. Um, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and the Dome of the Rock have domes that are almost identical in size. This suggests that the elevated position of the Dome of the Rock and the comparable size of its dome was a way that Muslims in the late 18th century proclaimed the superiority of their newly formed faith over Christians. So here is an example. I just added this picture of the Christian church just so you could sort of compare the two different domes. And we saw that too with the Mosque of Selim II, trying to sort of rival the Byzantine Christian dome of Hagia Sophia as well. The Dome of the Rock also contains an inscription 240 meters long that includes some of the earliest surviving examples of verses from the Quran in an architectural context. The Bismillah, Bismillah, in the name of God and the merciful and compassionate, the phrase that starts each verse of the Quran, and the Shahada, the Islamic confessor of faith, which states that there is only one God and Muhammad is his prophet, are also included in the inscription. The inscription also refers to Mary and Christ and proclaimed that Christ was not divine but a prophet. So that's one of the major differences between Christianity and Islam. Thus, the inscription also proclaims some of the core values of the newly formed religion of Islam. Below the rock is a small chamber whose purpose is not fully understood. Even today, for those who are fortunate enough to be able to enter the Dome of the Rock, the experience is moving regardless of one's faith. All right, so I'm going to stop here. We're going to continue. We're actually going to be traveling um, and looking at some other mosques. We're going to be looking at some calligraphy and some text from the Quran or verses from the Quran written in beautiful calligraphy, as well as some beautiful carpets in our next segment. So stay tuned.